Everybody, and welcome to Grand Central Terminal, which is the home of Metro North and soon to be the home of the Long Island Railroad.
Yay.
I'm Catherine Rinaldi. I'm the president of Metro North and the interim president of Long Island Railroad, and I want to thank you all for joining us today on this very important anniversary. Now it's up to me to introduce our chair and CEO, Jana Lieber, who's going to get us started. Jana.
Okay. Thank you, Kathy, and thank you. Kathy Rinaldi is just taking over. She's running 2 railroads. I hope everybody understands that. This lady is amazingly talented, and in this historic year for the Long Island Railroad, right, Anthony Simon? We are going to be led to the finish line of opening the new East Side Access Terminal in the basement of this amazing station by somebody who is already making history in so many ways, Kathy Rinaldi. So thank you, Kathy. Look, we are here today to mark 2 years. It's 2 years today since the MTA officially recognized the COVID-19 pandemic, since everything changed for us. It was on March 16th, 2020, that city schools shut down and the MTA and so many other companies sent their office workers home, loaded up with documents and materials to work remotely for we did not know how long, and we did not know how. We didn't know how serious this was going to be. We didn't know what was coming next, but there was a clear sense of apprehension in the city where we had already begun to experience that tidal wave of COVID, even before we came to understand how to manage it. While many New Yorkers were able to ride the pandemic out at home, not everyone had that choice. Behind me are some of the frontline workers of the MTA. Men and women from New York City Transit, subways and buses, from Long Island Railroad and Metro North, from MTA Bridges and Tunnels, from the MTA PD, the police force, and from MTA Construction and Development. All of them contributed to carrying on transportation in New York so that we could move the healthcare workers, the first responders, the grocery workers, the pharmacy workers, the utility workers, the child care workers, everybody who made it possible to keep New York alive through the pandemic. By moving the people who are keeping New York alive, you, frontline workers, literally kept the city alive. God bless you. Each one of them has a story. Luis Jimenez, a bus operator on the M2 and M3 routes. He's a 23-year MTA employee, and he's known for treating his passengers like neighbors. Right through the pandemic, Luis kept giving out his famous smile, even though it was through a mask, and it made a difference to riders in their daily lives. Compassion is part of our job. As Bridge and Tunnel Officer Joseph Moncada can tell you, he's the one who learned about a 91-year-old New Yorker who had gone missing, who obviously was disoriented. And through quick thinking, he managed to identify a car that gentleman was traveling in to flag him down and to reunite him with his family. Today, we're honoring Luis and Joseph, and we're honoring all the essential workers. And let us not forget, it's been 2 years, so we do forget, who powered New York through that incredible, scary initial phase of COVID. We owe them thanks. We owe them our gratitude. And we'll never forget the 160 MTA workers who lost their lives during COVID. We'll never forget them. They kept going, so many of them kept going in those early days when we didn't understand transmittal fully. and yet they stepped up and they showed up. We're happy to honor all of them today as we start looking towards the future, and the future is bright. But part of the reason the future is bright is that the MTA has survived an existential threat to its existence and is now poised to deliver on its role in the city and the region's revival. I've been focusing, and the MTA Beat press corps is here, they know, we've been focusing on the fiscal challenges the MTA faces that are ahead of us. The fiscal cliff that comes due a couple of years from now. But don't forget what it took to get us to this point when we're here to survive. It was a $15 billion infusion of federal aid that allows us to balance the budget through 2025, including most recently a big help from the governor through her executive budget. It didn't happen by chance. At every stage we were blessed, fortunate to have the leadership of Senator, now Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. But until January 2021, he was the minority leader. And we had an unfriendly situation in the Senate and in the White House and the administration as well. The MTA stepped up incredibly quickly in those early days to show Congress the data that would make the case that something had to be done. And remember, in those first days, literally we were losing $200 million a week as we powered the essential workers to their roles. But we were taking those heavy, heavy losses economically as well as personally. We sprang into action, putting together a coalition of transit agencies nationally, from Miami to San Francisco, many of whom were not yet facing the dire consequences that New York was already experiencing, and who were from red states in some cases. But we enlisted them to make sure that decision makers nationally understood what was going on. We developed detailed analysis with major national experts that made the arguments on the merits and that were persuasive. And we enlisted hugely important advocates, business, labor, to not just represent the MTA, but to mobilize bipartisan support. We literally had the head of the New York State Republican Party and every elected member of the Republican Party pushing for the MTA and for transit in what was certainly a man bites dog moment in terms of the national alignment. Everybody was made to understand the importance, the existential reality to New York, to region, and to the people of the city of having the MTA ready to continue this mission. We are so grateful to have represented here today, some folks from some of those organizations that made so much of a difference, labor especially. Labor reaches across the aisle. Labor works in the state capitals, and they work in the Congress, and they work with us. And they're here today. Gary LaBarbera, my old friend from the Building and Construction Trades Council of New York. Not only did the MTA keep running, we kept building every day, and that was Gary's members. God bless you. Anthony Simon and Chris Silvera, who represent the folks who work on the Long Island Railroad and the Metro North and the commuter railroads. Thank you for being here. Thank you for what you did. The New York City Construction, the District Council of Carpenters is here. They were a huge piece of it. So today's a celebration of essential workers, of the MTA's survival, but it's also a celebration because of where we are right now, as the MTA is here to power the city's revival, which is really what this is all about. Last Thursday, New Yorkers came back to transit in record numbers. 4.8 million riders on subways, buses, and the Staten Island Railway. That's the highest total since December 10th, right before Omicron hit us. And subway ridership alone has been setting records, surpassing 3 million for 6 consecutive weekdays since last week. I think we're going to get some more records this week. We have today representatives of 2 companies who are leading the charge, getting people back to the office. And it's not a coincidence they're companies who are located right by the biggest transportation hubs in New York. This, the Grand Central, we call East Midtown, but Grand Central and Penn Station. So right next to Penn Station is Meta, formerly Facebook, who's taken up residence in Moynihan, the old post office, which is now used by Moynihan Train Hall, but is also the huge new office facility for Meta, Facebook, and their other constituents, as well as JP Morgan Chase, who's a historic resident and a linchpin of the East Midtown Central Business District, and who's actually building a new headquarters right here, cheek by jowl with the north end of Grand Central. Just as they are bringing people back to offices and reimagining the future work, we are reimagining transportation. We know people are traveling differently, so we're taking a new approach to fares, including a new slate of discounts to make transit much more attractive, using our new fare capping capacity made possible by Omni, our new digital fare payment system. In the program's first 2 weeks, and I want to underscore this success, 76,000 customers hit the lucky 13 and got free rides for the rest of the week. That amounts to 228,000 free trips, or close to $1 million saved by these riders. We couldn't be more thrilled. That's why we created the Lucky 13 program, to give our riders a break through Omni. This new fare payment mechanism is catching on. It's becoming the mode of choice for so many New Yorkers. Last week, it was 27% of our riders. And we haven't forgotten about the railroads. This month, we expanded the city ticket program for deeply discounted travel on Metro North and Long Island Railroad within New York City, and introduced a new 20-trip ticket, which is designed to appeal to the new hybrid worker, folks who might not want to buy a monthly pass on the railroads, but who are going to come to work 2, 3+ times a week. And we also are discounting monthly tickets. So we're attacking the question of how do you bring riders back? How do you bring people back to work? How do you rebuild New York's economy? How do you reestablish the MTA's fiscal stability? We're taking action. We're holding the line on basic fares thanks to Governor Hochul, who has been great in every aspect of the MTA's work since she came in barely 6 months ago. So bottom line is, this is a day of celebration, but we are also looking forward to the exciting prospect of a truly re-energized Central Business District and mass transit system. And it's my pleasure to introduce Kia Lloyd of Meta to talk about her work. Kia?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kia Floyd. I'm the Director of U.S. Public Policy for the region for the Meta Corporation. As you heard from Jano, you probably know us more affectionately as the company formerly known as Facebook. We have been here in the city since 2007. Our first offices actually were located just at 335 Madison, just a few blocks away from here. New York plays a central role not just for our New York office, but for the larger growth and mission of our company, because community building is at the center of that mission. We know that New York is unparalleled. It simply is incomparable. No other market compares to it as far as its community, its diversity, and its vibrancy. So while the pandemic unfortunately forced us all to take what I like to call a short nap, that nap lasted about 2 years, But we are awake now, and we are ready to dig right back in to building and pushing forward the resiliency that we as New Yorkers have always had. The MTA has been a critical partner for us in not just attracting, but also retaining top talent for the tech industry here in the city. The MTA helps us get our employees to the office and to happy hours and to any number of other things that we consider important to keep our community together. So we want to thank you for all of the essential workers that kept us safe during the pandemic. Thank you so much. We want to express our deep gratitude. As we return to work in just a few short weeks, we're really going to be bullish about pushing New York forward. As I travel personally around the company, I'm constantly hit with the constant refrain of, what's happening in New York? How is life there? Do you still like living there? And I use it as an opportunity to emphatically say, I don't say heck yeah, to tell you the truth, I say another word, but I say yes. I absolutely still love being in New York and still see New York as a central part in moving our company forward as we move forward to the metaverse. We know that the talent of New York is a talent base that we can't get anywhere else. And many times our employees, they don't just choose to work for us, they choose to work for us because of the opportunity to work in our New York office. So again, on behalf of Meta, AKA Facebook, thank you so much for having us and allowing us to share in this momentous occasion to say, New York, again, we might have taken a nap, but we're up and ready to go now. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Kia. And, you know, if anybody had any illusions about napping, can you hear the buzz in Grand Central? This is different. This is back in action, the way Grand Central always used to be and always will be. It's my pleasure now to invite to the podium Raquel Oden, who's the head of consumer banking and network expansion for JP Morgan Chase.
So, good afternoon. And when you said we're back, we are back. If you guys could see the crowd here, it tells you what's going on here in New York. I really want to just start with a huge acknowledgement. My name is Raquel Oden, Managing Director here at JP Morgan Chase, and I think you heard from us. We have always been New York strong at JP Morgan in partnership here with the MTA and what we're calling here our essential workers. I want to say a huge thank you. I mean, a round of applause. And who would have thought the title of essential would mean so much? And we were able to survive this pandemic because of the essential workers. And I think we can never, ever, ever forget that. At JP Morgan Chase, as you heard, a consumer bank of where I lead network expansion, we have 4,700 branches across the entire country. 50,000 of our employees showed up every single day like you as essential workers, because access to your finances is also essential. So who would have thought that word would be true honor, and I think we could all agree that it's a badge of honor we will carry forever, and it tells us how we were able to keep not only New York City, but this country moving forward as a whole. So I salute to all of you and say thank you. When I think about New York and the importance of what this means and to have our transit, more importantly being our partner, we have over 15,000 employees here in New York City. So while our branches had been open the entire time, our corporate spaces had a little bit of a hybrid, and they are back as well. I want to be very clear. New York is back, we are back, and we also never left. And I think that's what's going to be critically important as we think about the importance, how we continue to move not only this economy together, but how we stay New York strong. Those are words that will continue to resonate with me. I'm a New Yorker my whole life. I've taken the Long Island Railroad for almost 3 decades, should I admit that? 30 years. And I'm an avid rider and supporter and will continue to do that. So I say thank you, because you allowed me to get to work every single day. And I think what's also important for us to realize is as we think about what we talk about New York and what it means, it is the partnership between corporations, the public sector, and very importantly, making sure we are there for our communities. We know when we think of the MTA, it gives us access across all of New York. And that's what makes it possible, not only for us to get to work, but also to make sure that we're able to serve all the communities, because we serve you, the community, and we're proud to be part of New York. And so with that, on behalf of JP Morgan Chase, I want to say a huge thank you. And what I would say is, we never left, and we're going to continue doing what we do, which is being New York strong in partnership with the MTA and our essential workers. Thank you.
So huge thank you again to Meta and JP Morgan Chase for being, not just for showing up today, but being a model of companies that are really committed to New York's vibrancy and to taking advantage of our incredible people, the energy of our people in person as well as through their expertise otherwise. I think we're going to bring it to a close now. I don't want to finish by acknowledging my friends at Local 3. Where are you? For anybody who doesn't know, Local 3 is the electrical experts. They're the guys who build all the complicated and newsflash, major projects now. There's a lot of tunnels, there's a lot of civil work. At the end of the day, it's about systems, and that's where you got to rely on your electrical professionals, and we bless you and appreciate what you're doing. They just happen to be a couple of them around because they're downstairs in the basement of this facility building a brand new transportation terminal that's going to carry half of the Long Island Railroad customers every day. Small project that the world doesn't quite know about, but we're going to open at the end of this year. With that, I'm going to call on-topic questions, says the great Minton. Tim, does everybody here have to stand around while the press asks their questions? On topic. All right, stick around for on topic, if you would.
All right, thanks. Hey, Jano, how's it going?
Good.
You talked about preparing for the future of the MTA. There's a new subvariant making its way around Europe right now, a subvariant of Omicron. How is the MTA preparing for a potential rise so that we don't have to cancel 6 lines again because of mass staffing outages?
Okay, so Kevin, as you know, the MTA is an incredibly creative response. It's no secret we had crew shortages like the rest of the country, but unlike airlines and some of the other sectors of the economy, including transportation, our system didn't fall apart. We used an incredible set of really creative moves to make sure that we could fill the holes generally during crew shortages at the end of the summer and into the fall, and even during Omicron. And I'm just going to recap them because I think you know that. We brought back retirees. We incentivized people not to take vacation, even though it was the holiday season. We actually expedited training of workers. We brought back some people who are working in the yards to actually run trains. So we had incredible success. We brought our service delivery on buses now, I think we're almost all the way to, I'm going to check the numbers for you, but we're very close to having absolutely full complement of workers. And as Demetrius and I talk about every day, we have train operators and bus drivers, the most service-sensitive trades and titles. We're making service because we have brought together enough backup folks that we can cover all the open slots. So we're having tremendous success on that front. The whole question of what do we do? We're in a different position, so I don't think that we would sustain the same challenges at the same level, but we've already proven that we know how to muscle through challenges that are brought on by Omicron or any hypothetical new pandemic-related episode. So I'm pretty comfortable that we're going to be ready and we'll do even better than we did during the Omicron episode, which was pretty damn good.
Just following up quickly on that, how are we in a different position, say, if a new spike comes versus like the Omicron surge?
Well, we have a lot more. We've been training, as you know, for over 6 months. We've been growing our workforce and shrinking that shortage that was the result of the hiring freeze during the days of the pandemic when we didn't know if money was coming from Washington. So we've grown our workforce in the service-sensitive titles, bus operators, train operators, conductors, and otherwise, and we're much closer to a full complement of workforce. As I said, we're pretty close to being able to cover every run every day. So different position than we were even a few short months ago. Yes.
Hi, Jano. Subway ridership, as you have said here, is up, and office occupancy rates are rising as well. But what's the MTA doing in terms of the handful or few subway stations where private entrances remain closed. How soon will those reopen?
So, to my friends, this is a highly specific question of the kind you only get from your beat reporters. I think there's a half a dozen entrances you're talking about, right, Jose? There are ones that, let me just repeat for you because you know this, they're not owned by the MTA, they were developed by real estate developers in a prior era, and they are jurisdictionally regulated by the New York City Buildings Department. Bottom line, we don't have any control over them. There were deals that made before that we don't control those developers. However, we are using all the powers that we do have at our disposal to put pressure on them to fix those. Usually it's broken escalator. And we have continued to push the city, our friends, who have been so great in so many ways, to use their powers to enforce on them. But unfortunately, we don't have control over those because the original deals that created those entrances are not, the MTA was not a party to it, we don't own the escalators, and we don't regulate them. But we're going to keep pushing because we want them open.
Okay, so you can't pin down a date for when they will be open and bring some elevators back.
Okay, and I'm going to say it because I think you know it, but just hopefully it gets in your story. Last year we opened more MTA ADA elevators than ever before in MTA's history, and we are by far the fastest capital program in terms of investments in accessibility. This is what you're talking about is one remnant of a prior era where the MTA didn't get to control all the ADA accessibility improvements. That's what we're dealing with, and we're pushing hard. Yes?
Hi, can you go back through those ridership numbers and just lay them back out again? I just want to make sure I have them correctly.
Well, why don't we do that offline? But the most important one is we have 6 consecutive days of over 3 million, and we're almost back to where we were before Omicron. Things are moving.
Got it. And one follow-up here. On the platform barriers, as you're preparing for the future and riders are coming back, do you have any timeline or how are things going in terms of? Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm curious for the Meta and JP Morgan representatives here. How many of your workers are back in the office regularly, and are you doing anything to financially incentivize them to take transit over driving a private vehicle?
Hi. On behalf of Meta, I can tell you of our 4,000 members of our workforce, many are looking forward to getting back into the office. Some may have elected to opt for the new hybrid model, which will allow them to come into the office a few days of the week and then work from home or elsewhere a few others. So the answer is TBD. We won't actually know until we're fully reopened, but we anticipate, based on what we've heard thus far, that the majority of our employees here in New York still feel such a strong affinity to New York that they want to get back as often as they can.
Transit versus driving a private car, any incentives in there?
The vast majority of our workers that live in New York actually live in the city, so most are not taking cars and do rely on transit or walk to work, given that they live within a reasonable walking distance.
And I'll answer at high level on behalf of JP Morgan Chase. So as I shared, for our branches, we never close. So we've been coming in as essential workers. And then for our corporate offices, we have been back in a hybrid mode. And so we are all coming to work every single day. Those in our branches never stopped. And in the corporate space, we are in a hybrid component here in New York and across the country.
Hi, Jano. You got a sign that says "Welcome back, New York," but you've got 2 things in the subway that aren't back from before the pandemic, namely cash in the token booths and subway bathrooms. Does the MTA have plans to restore either of those services for riders?
So, what you call, every one of our vending machines takes cash. There is no. The MTA is a cash business if people want to use cash. So we are taking cash and we're making it possible for our customers to use cash. What you're talking about is there really is the transactions that have to take place in the booth are a tiny, tiny percentage of the overall transactions. And we are actually working with our friends in labor who represent those, what I used to call token booth clerks, station agents, to develop a much more dynamic station agent model for those people to be, for their work, for their responsibilities. There's no job cuts that are involved. but it hopefully is going to take advantage of their expertise to have more customer interaction and bring people out of the booths to help customers who really, where people need the help, which is navigating the system, information, how to work the vending machines, and so on. So that's something that we're working with our partners in labor on, and we fully expect that model will be implemented in the coming months. And and I think I've answered the station bathrooms. The real issue is we don't have enough cleaners to clean the stations. So the idea of adding, frankly, a COVID-intensive cleaning environment like bathrooms to it has been a discouragement. But we've not ruled out reopening those bathrooms. We're going to try to get at it as soon as we have the workforce and the capacity to protect those workers. Because the one thing I'm hearing from people who work in stations is right now they're pretty uncomfortable and even scared to go into some of those bathrooms. And so we're going to make sure that just like there is a subway safety program, there is an MTA employee safety program that we can deliver on. Group shot. Okay. Thank you guys for letting me. I always take that. One group shot and then thank you. Do we want to take mask off for one shot? Are we allowed or no? Kathy, can we take off mask for one shot? One shot. Okay, 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Mask back on. Let the games begin. Go ahead. Who's up?
Thanks. Just curious, after we heard from Meta and JP Morgan that so many of their workers are still hybrid, there are really no financial incentives on trains versus cars. Are we past waiting for office workers to come back? Is that, not part of the MTA strategy anymore? We have to think broader than that?
Absolutely not. First of all, we continue to have, let's not lose perspective. New York's commuting population is it's somewhere between 80 and 90% mass transit. It's still overwhelmingly mass transit. That hasn't changed. There's no question that we're still in the process of coming back from the pandemic. So the degree of hybrid work is right now what it is, and it continues to grow in terms of the number of people coming to the office. The trends are positive, and I disagree that there are no incentives. Remember, right now we have the cost of gas, tolls. The economic incentives in favor of mass transit are really strong. We've made them stronger with these new fare products, which are designed to appeal to the hybrid worker who's commuting on the Long Island Railroad or Metro North. It's designed to appeal to the, somebody who's riding the subways or the buses and using Omni. We're making it cheaper to ride mass transit. It's already cheaper to ride mass transit. Gas prices are going up, it's no secret. Mass transit is definitely a bargain.
On that note, have you seen any ridership changes since we started seeing these high gas prices?
I think it's too early to kind of declare cause and effect, but definitely ridership continues to go up as gas prices have gone up. We'll see whether that is how that trend continues.
Yeah, I wanted to see if you could react to the legislature shooting down Hochul's proposal to give the MTA more authority when it comes to utility relocation for construction projects. That's obviously very important for big projects like 2nd Avenue Subway. So what's your plan moving forward for that kind of work, and do you hope that subsequent legislation could give you that kind of flexibility?
Look, what I think the governor was asking for, and the MTA's asked for it before, is the same power that the city has to order the utilities out. We do get the utilities to relocate. When we have to build, for example, the 2nd Avenue Subway in the middle of 2nd Avenue, we have a late 19th century sewer line that has to be moved. It's a little more complicated under the current regime because because the move and the terms of what will be replaced have to be negotiated, and it sometimes takes a while. But we've always gotten it done. So we have a plan. We're working with Con Ed. We're working with Empire City Subway. We're working with all of the utilities, and I'm sure we're going to overcome it. But that is a real proposal because it doesn't seem logical that the city should have the power to say to the utilities, you got to move, but the MTA, which is providing this important public service, should not. That's an inequality that the governor's proposal was designed to address. We will figure it out, though, and it will not cause delays to the 2nd Avenue subway.
Hi, I wanted to ask you, can you provide any update to how the Mayor Adams and Governor Hochul's plan to try and safen the subways? And I've spoken with people who have said that they've seen the police on the trains, but then they go up to those individuals and they don't necessarily move, and then they just kind of walk away. So do you have any update to how this new program is going? Yeah.
Well, obviously this is the NYPD's program, but I can tell you this. I met with the chief of the Transit Bureau yesterday. I've had ongoing discussions with City Hall, and I am incredibly impressed, number one, with the mayor's strategy, which is pretty comprehensive. We heard today about he's going to ask the chiefs the chiefs of police in all categories are going to be riding, but that's indicative of this broad commitment to make sure that the department, that the NYPD is really focused on subway safety. So everybody, whether they work in the Transit Bureau or not, has got to understand and observe and report on what's going in the subway. It's a great message from the mayor, from City Hall today. But more broadly, they're not only doing those small groups that are moving through the subway system and approaching homeless individuals and offering services. As of this week, they are enacting major additional efforts at the end-of-line stations, which we have coordinated with them. Just this week, we're getting them started and working out the kinks, but we're going to have end-of-line operations akin to what there were, and the mayor talked about this in original subway safety plan, similar to what there were in the original that we had going during COVID. Remember when we closed the subways down in the middle of the night from 1 to 5 a.m.? We're going to inaugurate those type of systematic end-of-line operations where each train is met by cops, by social service workers, and people are, I think that is probably the best forum to try to attract people to accept social services and to bring them out of the subway. So that's starting. We're seeing a lot more cops in the system, on platforms and on trains rather than elsewhere in the system. That was a priority that the mayor talked about and the NYPD is talking about. And we're starting to see, I think real improvements in the overall environment. So we're optimistic. This is going to take a little while, but I'm very optimistic in part because the intensity, the commitment that the mayor has made, and the progress that we're seeing in what the NYPD is doing.
Ticket, the only station that does not apply within the city is Far Rockaway, a very low income community of color, because of a quirk where the train has to go in and out of Nassau County both ways. Is there any way you're looking to fix that with this promotion? Do you think it's fair that some of the poorest commuters still have to pay regular off-peak fares?
Well, the complexity is the whole Long Island Railroad fare system is based on a distance of travel system. So it really is a problem that it goes from the city station that you just described, Far Rockaway, and then passes through, I think, 6 or 7 communities that are actually in Nassau County that would not be eligible for the same discount. So it is an anomaly. We want to be able to, we very much respect and want to provide benefits to Far Rock. And what we're doing is we're looking at different ways of giving them incentives that would have real value. Even if this one, because of that quirk, as you said, is not possible, we think that there may be other ways we can give Far Rockaway, Long Island Railroad commuters on the Hempstead branch a similar, on the Far Rock branch, a similar incentive of close to or similar value. Okay.
Hey, Jano.
Michael Gold?
Michael Gold.
In person?
In the flesh.
I've never seen the guy. Is that really him?
That's false. Don't recognize me because of the ever-shifting hair.
Oh.
Yeah. 2 questions, if that's okay, to celebrate my, in-person attendance. That's right. One about the being a national conversation about suspending the gas tax. It's getting a lot of traction in Albany from legislators. Obviously, some of that money goes toward the MTA. So I wonder if you're watching this and if the gas tax is suspended for a year, as some people are calling for, do you have alternative finance sources that you guys can tap?
Not that I know of right now. It's $400 million the first year if we were to lose the gas tax to the MTA. and equally important, the gas tax secures some specific bonds. You know, the MTA's so-called TRBs, the transportation revenue bonds, are secured by all of the MTA's fare revenues and subsidies, but there are also individual credits that are specifically secured by specific funding streams or revenue streams. And we have, I can't remember the exact name of those bonds, but there are specific bonds that are secured by those petroleum business taxes, I think it's called. So it's a pretty complicated issue, and we have recently become aware of that discussion, and if we didn't, you know, we have to get people to understand what that could hypothetically mean for the MTA.
Well, similar on that topic. Well, okay. How are you guys figuring that into your financial planning? I mean, you've talked a lot in the last year about the need for alternative revenue. You've mentioned several times today that federal money is what's closing the gap. And I know you guys are looking at McKinsey projections and surges and all of this. I just wonder, like, this gas tax thing, how do you guys kind of start to rethink about this? I mean, I know this is a years away problem, but that's going to add a new urgency to this issue you've already identified.
You know, listen, the conversation came to my attention in the last 24 hours, Michael, so I'm not by any means thinking like this is a done deal. I've only just found out, literally this morning, the numbers I just gave you, I asked people to develop this morning. So we're trying to get our heads around this idea. Again, I understand that it's early days in the discussion, but you know, our view is the MTA's financing, especially the bond, you know, if a particular security is supporting bonds, needs to be carefully examined before anybody messes with it. Okay, thank you.